Imagine standing somewhere that science says shouldn't be there. A place where the ground burns without fire, where lakes can dissolve your skin, where ancient cities sit on top of molten rock. And yet, people live there. Animals survive there. Some of these places have existed for thousands of years. Today, we're exploring 7 places on Earth that technically shouldn't exist. Not because they are fake, but because, by the rules of geology, physics, or biology, they break expectations. These are places that challenge what we think is possible on this planet. Let's start with one that looks like the gates of hell. One, the door to hell, Turkmenistan. In the middle of the Karakum Desert, there's a massive crater on fire. It's about 230 feet wide, around 100 feet deep, and it has been burning continuously since 1971. This place is officially called the Darvaza gas crater, but most people know it as the door to hell. Here's why it technically shouldn't exist. In the 1970s, Soviet scientists were drilling for natural gas. The ground beneath their rig collapsed, revealing a huge underground gas pocket. Worried that toxic gases would escape, they made a decision. They lit it on fire. The idea was simple. Burn off the gas in a few days. Then move on. Except the gas never stopped. More than 50 years later, the crater is still burning. Geologically speaking, a fire like this should have gone out decades ago. The gas supply should have collapsed. The walls should have caved in. But somehow, the underground reservoir keeps feeding the flames. At night, the crater glows orange. You can feel the heat from yards away. And yet, people hike right up to the edge. A man-made accident turned into a permanent, self-sustaining inferno. And it's still burning today. 2. Lake Natron, Tanzania. Lake Natron looks calm, almost peaceful. But it's one of the deadliest lakes on Earth. This lake has a pH as high as 10.5, similar to ammonia or bleach. Its waters are loaded with sodium carbonate, the same chemical ancient Egyptians used to mummify bodies. Animals that fall into Lake Natron don't just die. They calcify. Their bodies harden, preserved in stone-like form. So why shouldn't this lake exist? Because lakes this alkaline usually don't support life at all. Yet Lake Natron does. Flamingos breed here in massive numbers. Algae thrives in water hot enough to reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Microorganisms survive conditions that would kill almost anything else. The ecosystem isn't just alive. It's specialized. Everything here evolved to survive conditions that should be impossible. The lake exists at the edge of biological tolerance. Change the chemistry slightly, and the entire system collapses. And yet, it's been stable for thousands of years. 3. The Rikhat structure, Mauritania. From the ground, it looks like desert. From space, it looks like a giant eye staring back at Earth. The Rikhat structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, is nearly 30 miles wide. At first, scientists thought it was a meteor impact. It's circular, perfectly symmetrical, impossible to miss from orbit. But there's no impact debris, no shock minerals, no crater rim. So what is it? That's the problem. The structure is made of lead rock formations pushed upward, then eroded perfectly evenly over millions of years. Normally, erosion is chaotic, messy, uneven. This wasn't. For erosion to create something this precise, conditions had to remain stable for an incredibly long time. No major earthquakes. No shifting tectonic plates. No climate changes strong enough to disrupt the process. Statistically, that's unlikely. Yet it happened. The Eye of the Sahara exists because nothing went wrong for millions of years, which almost never happens on Earth. 4. Socotra Island, Yemen. Socotra doesn't look like Earth. About 1/3 of its plant life exists nowhere else on the planet. The most famous example is the dragon blood tree, with an umbrella-shaped canopy and red sap that looks like blood. So why shouldn't Socotra exist? Because it's biologically isolated in a way that's almost impossible. The island split from mainland Africa over 20 million years ago. It avoided ice ages, avoided mass extinctions, avoided invasive species for most of its history. That kind of isolation usually ends badly. Species die out. Ecosystems collapse. Instead, Socotra exploded with life. Plants evolved strange shapes to conserve water. Animals adapted to extreme heat and wind. Entire ecosystems formed without outside interference. It's often called the most alien-looking place on Earth. And it only exists because it somehow avoided every disaster that wiped out similar islands. 5. The Hanging Lake, Colorado, USA. High in Glenwood Canyon, there's a turquoise lake clinging to a cliff. It's called Hanging Lake. The water is crystal clear, mineral-rich, perfectly balanced. Here's the problem. Lakes don't usually form on cliff sides. Water should drain away. Rock should erode. The lake should dissipate. But Hanging Lake is fed by a fault line deep underground. Minerals seep into the water, creating natural dams of travertine rock. These dams rebuild themselves as fast as erosion tries to destroy them. It's a delicate balance. Too much foot traffic damages the rock. A small shift in water chemistry could collapse the system. For most of Earth's history, this lake shouldn't have survived. And one wrong change could erase it completely. 6. The Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. This is one of the hottest, most hostile places on Earth. Temperatures regularly exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The air is toxic. The ground is unstable. The Danakil Depression sits at the meeting point of 3 tectonic plates pulling apart. In theory, this area should be violently collapsing. Instead, it's slowly tearing itself open, revealing magma, acid pools, and mineral chimneys. Bright green, yellow, and orange pools bubble with sulfuric acid. Salt formations grow like alien towers. What makes it even stranger? People live here. The Afar people mine salt by hand in conditions that should be lethal. Geologically, this region is in the process of becoming a new ocean. Yet it exists as a stable landmass, for now. It's a place that is literally in the middle of breaking apart. 7. Venice, Italy. Venice is built on mud. Not bedrock. Not solid ground. Mud. The city rests on millions of wooden piles driven into soft sediment beneath a lagoon. By all engineering logic, it should have sunk centuries ago. Wood rots in water. Except, it doesn't here. Because the piles are submerged in oxygen-poor mud, bacteria can't break them down. The wood petrifies instead, becoming stronger over time. Venice also sits in a region prone to flooding, storms, and rising sea levels. And yet, for over 1,000 years, the city has survived. Barely. It floods more often now. The ground is slowly sinking. The sea is rising. Venice exists in a constant state of near failure. A city that shouldn't exist. Still standing. For now, Earth isn't as stable as it looks. Most of the time, places like these disappear before we ever notice them. But every once in a while, conditions line up just right, and something impossible survives. If you enjoyed this, let me know which place surprised you the most. And remember, the planet is stranger than fiction.